This is my Canon R6 Mark II, and this is my Canon R6 Mark II rigged out to be a cinema camera. But does building out a cinema rig around your mirrorless camera actually make it better? And more importantly, should you be doing it? For context, I've been shooting video professionally on my two mirrorless cameras, my Canon R6 Mark II and my original R6, for about 3 years now. And I've never used any of these accessories until now. But I finally decided to pull the trigger on some quality video accessories. So now I feel qualified to answer the question, does all of this actually make a difference? And should you be doing it? Or am I just playing cinema camera dress up? The first thing we need to talk about is the comparison between this and an actual cinema camera like a Canon C80 or a Sony FX6. Because all of this doesn't magically make my R6 as good of a cinema camera as something like that. Real cinema cameras have professional video focus features and are designed to be used by multiple people operating different aspects of the camera. This is not a replacement for that. But cinema cameras also come with a long list of additional expenses. On top of the camera costing a lot, the batteries are really expensive. You usually need multiple accessories to get things set up the way you want, like a wireless follow focus or a video transmission system. I actually briefly looked into buying the Canon C80 when I was considering what next camera to buy to replace my R6. I was thinking about the R5 Mark II, which is what I ended up getting, but I did look into the C80 because I was thinking about I need something that can be really good at video and not overheat and not run out of recording time. But in the end, I decided the additional cost to set up and use the C80 was just not worth it for me right now over the benefits of having a camera that's also a really good photo camera. Because my work is hybrid, I do photo and video. If I was just doing video, it might be a different story, but I needed a really good photo camera as well. This whole setup cost me about $1,000 Canadian for the cage, monitor, battery, and all the cables and things that tie it all together. And although all of this stuff doesn't magically make my camera a cinema camera, it does allow me to use my camera in ways that really do help with the filmmaking. So I want to talk about why and how, and if you're considering doing this, what accessories maybe you should get as well. Because all this stuff doesn't magically improve my camera's dynamic range or video quality or whatever, but it does give me specific usability features that makes using this as a video camera a lot more worthwhile. First, the cage and top handle from SmallRig. The cage on its own doesn't do a whole lot, although I did make a whole video on what you can do with just a camera cage. It can be useful on its own, but in this case, it's mainly used as the foundation to attach everything else. The top handle makes getting low angles easier to get and allows for some more mounting points. And the other cold shoe on the cage allows me to mount my shotgun mic on there for better scratch audio. Next, for the monitor, I got a Viltrox DCX2. It's a 6-inch monitor, it's super bright, and it's got a bunch of professional video features like anamorphic D-squeeze and false color, that kind of thing. I've managed fine with the camera's built-in screen for years, but it is really small, and also when you have it set up so that all your controls and histogram and things are being displayed on the screen, it covers up a lot of the actual preview of the video. So having this monitor is really great for getting just a better idea of what my final shot's gonna look like. It's also the type of monitor that you would add to a cinema camera, so it's bringing the experience a lot more in line with what you would do with an actual cinema camera. And the last part of this is the battery. This is a SmallRig V-mount battery, and its capacity is equivalent to about 6 of the regular Canon batteries. Now normally you use a V-mount battery with a plate on a rail system that you would have the 2 rails underneath the camera, but I wouldn't be using the rails for anything else. I don't want a follow focus on there because I'm using autofocus almost all the time, and I don't need to put a matte box on it or anything. So I got this other mount from SmallRig that just attaches to the camera using the Arca Swiss mount on the bottom of the cage. So I can have it on there. It's a pretty small profile. Overall, I'm actually really happy with how this build looks in terms of like its physical size. It's pretty compact. But this battery specifically is really cool because it has a bunch of plugs on it. It has D-tap, it has 2 USB-C, a USB-A, and then 2 DC power plugs. And that's significant because it means I can power this whole system off of just this battery, both the camera and the monitor. And also a couple other things if I want to scale this up more. Like normally this monitor takes an NPF battery, which is, you know, the big chunky, one of these guys goes right on the back of the monitor if you want to power it. But because I'm using the V-mount battery, I don't need to add that extra weight to the top of my camera. And in terms of powering my camera, this is gonna last so much longer. When I shoot like an 8-hour day, for example, and I'm shooting like a wedding, so the camera's basically on the whole time, I'll run through 5 or 6 of my regular Canon batteries throughout that day. Which, one, it's kind of annoying to have to carry just a bunch of batteries with you, but also in the moment, if something important is happening, you don't want to have to switch out your batteries and potentially miss something. So the cool thing about this battery is even with powering the camera and the monitor, it should last pretty much an entire 8-hour day with how I use my camera. Worst case scenario, I have to get a second one of these batteries and I will go through like 1 1/10 of these batteries in a day. The battery also adds a good amount of weight to the back of the camera, which is nice because the lens and the monitor at the front of the camera make it very front heavy, and this kind of balances it out a bit. Having all this weight is also nice for making your camera look more cinematic when you're shooting, because there is a major problem with shooting handheld on these lightweight mirrorless cameras. Because these cameras are so lightweight, you get what's called micro jitters when you're shooting. Because it's so light, it has a lot of tiny little movements in the footage when you shoot handheld. And these cameras compensate for that by adding in-body image stabilization. But that can sometimes leave weird jello artifacts on your screen, and that's just not cinematic. Cinema cameras don't really have these micro jitters because they just naturally weigh a lot more, so they don't have all these little shakes. And most of them also aren't using in-body image stabilization, so you get a much more clean handheld shot. But with all of this stuff that we've added to the camera, we've made it a lot more like a cinema camera in that aspect. It's a lot easier to hold and handle because of the extra handle on top, but it also weighs a lot more, so we're reducing that micro jitter. So with all these accessories, what is actually better about my camera now? Well, we didn't improve the video quality in any way, obviously, but what we did do is improve the usability of the camera. With this setup, we can preview our image much better. We don't have to change batteries as often. The camera is a lot easier to handle, especially for long periods of time. And there's a lot more room for adding more accessories if I need to down the line, like a left side handle or a matte box or a follow focus. So that's the main reason that you build your camera out like this. If you are sitting there right now shooting video on your mirrorless camera just on its own, and you see all these people on Instagram and YouTube building out their cameras, and you're wondering to yourself, is this something I need to do to shoot professional video? The answer is you don't. All these accessories won't magically make you a better filmmaker or cinematographer. Your videos won't suddenly become super cinematic. But if you're a professional who's doing work, especially for long hours shooting video, this rig will really improve the usability of your camera. And it also, this is kind of like a side thing that it shouldn't matter, but it does a little bit. Your camera looks a lot more professional when it's rigged out like this. So when you show up and the client sees that you got this whole rig thing, they're like, wow, that guy knows what he's doing, which is, it's kind of dumb that that's a thing, but it is a thing. But the main thing here is being able to use your creativity with less camera limitations. I would still love to own a cinema camera one day. No matter what you do to a hybrid mirrorless camera, you're still gonna be working through some limitations of it being a photo and video camera. Because especially with Canon, they never release all their video features onto the mirrorless cameras because they don't wanna compete. Like, why would you buy a C80 if a R6 Mark III or whatever could do all the same stuff? But for me right now, and at least the type of projects I'm currently doing, having a dedicated cinema camera just doesn't make financial sense for me over having two really good hybrid cameras. My two cameras, the R6 Mark II and my R5 Mark II, are both fantastic video cameras for what they are. And that versatility is a lot more valuable to me than having something that has really specific video features, at least right now. But let me know what you think of my cinema rig. I think I did a pretty good job rigging it out. I didn't follow any specific path or instructions or anything for putting these things together. I just picked the aspects of a rig that I think would be most beneficial to me, and I left out the stuff that I don't think I would use very often, because what you don't want to do with a setup like this is build it out over the top and have all these accessories on it that you never use, because that's just not benefiting anybody. The one thing I might add to this setup now that I have it built and I've used it a little bit is a left side handle. The top handle is really nice, but I find I want to hold the top handle with my right hand, and then there's nothing on the left side of the camera for me to like grab onto. So I might go with a left side handle, but we'll see. Let me know in the comments if you have any suggestions for what I should add to this setup. If there's like some really specific accessory that I need, let me know. I'm willing to check it out. But that's all I got for you in this video. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.